When someone ignores you, it hurts. Let's just say it how it is. It stings. That feeling in your chest when your message goes unanswered, when your presence feels invisible, when someone who once made you feel special suddenly starts acting like you don't exist. It's brutal. And I know how easy it is in that moment to turn inward and start asking yourself the wrong questions. What did I do wrong? Was I too much? Am I not enough? But let me stop you right there, because this is the trap. When someone ignores us, our natural tendency is to make it about ourselves. We start assuming their silence must be a reflection of something lacking within us. And that belief that if only we had been prettier, smarter, cooler, more aloof, then maybe, just maybe, they would have stayed engaged. That belief is not only damaging, it's flat out untrue. The reality is, when someone chooses to ignore you, it says far more about where they're at emotionally than anything about who you are. And I know that's hard to swallow when you're caught up in the disappointment, but it's the truth you have to hold on to. Their silence is not a measure of your worth. It's a mirror of their capacity or lack thereof to show up in a healthy way. You see, communication, real, honest communication takes maturity. It takes respect. And it takes a willingness to be open even when the message might not be comfortable to give or receive. When someone is emotionally mature, they don't ghost, they don't breadcrumb, and they certainly don't disappear into the shadows the second things get real. They say what they mean, and they show up in a way that makes you feel safe, not small. Now, I'm not saying people don't get busy. Life happens. We all have off days. But there's a difference between someone who occasionally needs space and someone who makes you feel like you're constantly chasing scraps of attention. If their silence becomes a pattern, if it's making you anxious, confused, or doubting yourself, that's no longer about time management. That's emotional unavailability wearing a very familiar disguise. And here's the kicker. When you start personalizing someone else's inability to communicate, you end up chasing clarity from a person who's never going to give it. You bend, you shrink, you accommodate, just to try and bring them closer. And before you know it, you're in a dynamic where you're doing all the work while they do the disappearing. That's not love. That's emotional labor. And it's exhausting. So let's reframe this. What if, instead of seeing their silence as a rejection of you, you started seeing it as a reflection of them? What if, instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, you started realizing they're not ready or not capable of showing up for the kind of connection I deserve? Because that's the truth. When someone ignores you, they're showing you their level of emotional maturity. They're showing you what they can offer, how they handle discomfort, and how they treat people when things don't go their way. It's a moment of clarity disguised as hurt. And I know it still stings. I'm not here to pretend it doesn't, but the pain is telling you something important. It's a sign, not a sign to prove yourself harder, but a sign to stop proving yourself altogether. The moment you stop chasing people who ignore you is the moment you reclaim your power. You stop begging for breadcrumbs and start holding out for the full meal. You stop making excuses for why someone can't reply to a message, and instead you recognize that you're not someone who should ever be put on read emotionally, because you bring value, you bring depth, you bring presence. And someone ignoring that, that's not a commentary on you, it's a missed opportunity on their part. And let's be honest, if someone is truly interested, if someone values you, they make it known. They don't make you guess. They don't make you ache for a response. They show up, they engage, they invest. That's the baseline. Anything less isn't mysterious, it's just misaligned. And I know what you might be thinking. But what if they come back? Maybe they will. People often resurface when they feel your energy pulling away. But the real question is, why should they have to lose your presence to realize your worth? Why should you accept attention that only arrives once they sense you've stopped waiting? Here's what I want you to remember. When someone ignores you, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't panic and try to fix it. Let it be what it is. A signal, not of your inadequacy, but of their emotional limitation. And in that space where their silence echoes. You get to choose how you respond. You get to decide that you're not going to shrink just because someone else couldn't see your life. You don't chase clarity, you embody it. Because the truth is, the people who are meant for you won't ignore you. They won't vanish when it gets inconvenient. They won't leave you wondering. They'll value your presence so deeply that they'll make space for you, even when it's hard, even when they're busy, even when they're unsure, because people who are emotionally available prioritize connection. So when someone ignores you, yes, it hurts, but let that hurt be a signpost, not a sentence. A sign that you're ready for something more, a sign that you've outgrown one-sided dynamics, a sign that it's time to stop trying to convince someone of your value and start embodying it unapologetically. Because your worth isn't defined by who shows up for you, it's defined by how you show up for yourself. Let their silence be the last word you never needed. When someone ignores you, it's easy to fall into the trap of confusion. You start wondering, did I say something wrong? Did I come on too strong? Are they just busy? And before you know it, you're stuck in your own head, overthinking every interaction, every message left on read, every delayed reply. But here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Silence isn't neutral. Silence is communication. We've all been there. You meet someone, there's a spark, conversations flow, maybe even some vulnerable moments are shared. You start to feel like this could be something. And then it shifts. They pull back. They stop engaging. Maybe they stop replying altogether. Or they reply, but only in short, lazy responses that feel more like an obligation than a desire to talk to you. And you're left hanging, trying to read between the lines of what's not being said. That right there is your sign. Because ignoring someone doesn't mean I'm busy. It doesn't mean I'm just figuring things out. Most of the time, it means I'm not prioritizing you. And that stings, especially when your heart is involved, especially when you felt like there was something real between you. But let's get real. If someone can ghost you or breadcrumb you or treat you like an afterthought, then what they're showing you is that they're not capable or willing to meet your emotional needs. And that's not something you should chase. Ignoring someone is passive rejection dressed up as politeness. People sometimes think that by saying nothing, they're avoiding hurting you. But what they don't realize is that silence often hurts more than honesty. At least honesty gives you closure. Silence makes you question yourself. But silence is an answer. When someone goes quiet on you, they're saying, I don't value this connection enough to communicate. And that, painful as it may be, is information you can work with. I know it's tempting to fill the silence with excuses. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they're bad at texting. Maybe they just need time. And sure, life gets busy. People go through things. But here's the thing. People make time for what matters to them. Even a short message saying, hey, I'm not in a good space right now, but I care about you and want to reconnect when I'm ready, tells you everything you need to know about someone's character. Ignoring you tells you something else entirely. You see, when someone ignores you, it forces you into the role of the chaser. It turns the dynamic into one where you're constantly trying to reclaim their attention, their affection, their interest. And that imbalance is where self-worth starts to erode. You start to believe you need to prove yourself to them, when in reality, the moment they stopped engaging, they proved themselves to you. People who truly want to build something with you don't leave you wondering. They don't go silent and make you chase their attention like it's some sort of reward you have to earn. Real connection is consistent, it's reciprocal, it's clear. If someone is ignoring you, that is clarity. It's not the clarity you wanted, but it's the clarity you need. And I get it. Some people are scared of confrontation. They don't know how to say, I'm not feeling it, or this isn't for me. But emotional maturity is being able to communicate discomfort, disinterest, or uncertainty with respect. Ignoring someone doesn't protect their feelings, it diminishes them. And if someone can't even offer you that basic level of respect, then you need to ask yourself what kind of relationship you'd actually be walking into if things Because if this is how they handle distance now, by disappearing or withdrawing, imagine how they'd handle conflict. Imagine how they'd handle emotional vulnerability. Imagine how often you'd find yourself trying to decode their behavior instead of just feeling safe in their presence. Sometimes we hold on to potential, we romanticize what could be if only they stopped being distant, if only they realized what they have in us. But here's the hard truth. Someone who needs to ignore you in order to realize your worth is not someone who's ready to meet you where you are. You don't have to wait for someone to wake up to your value. The right person already sees it and they show up accordingly. You deserve someone who chooses you in their words and their silence. Someone whose communication doesn't leave you feeling anxious but reassured. Someone who speaks through their actions, not just their promises. Because when someone cares, even when they're overwhelmed, even when life is chaotic, they don't ignore you. They find a way to let you know you still matter. Ignoring you is not a test you need to pass. It's not a signal for you to try harder. It's a sign that your effort is better spent elsewhere. On someone who brings peace, not confusion, who offers consistency, not games, who engages with you because they want to, not because you had to beg for their attention. So don't chase the person who goes silent. Don't sit in the agony of mixed signals and wait for someone to remember your worth. Let their silence speak for itself and respond to it with your own kind of clarity, the kind that says, I heard you loud and clear and I'm moving on. Because silence may hurt, but sometimes it's the loudest sign you'll ever get. When you find yourself being ignored by someone you care about, or maybe someone you're hoping will care about you, there's this sudden spiral of overthinking that kicks in. You start wondering, did I say something wrong? Did I come off too strong? Are they just busy, or are they actually losing interest? And before you know it, you're wrapped up in trying to interpret every small behavior, every delayed text, every unread message, like it's a riddle you're supposed to solve. But let me say something that might just shift the way you see all of this. If you're constantly analyzing someone's behavior, wondering why they haven't replied, or finding yourself walking on eggshells not to scare them off, you're already doing too much, way too much. Because connection should never feel like a game of guesswork. You shouldn't have to solve someone to love them. And you definitely shouldn't have to shrink yourself or tiptoe around your own needs just to hold on to their attention. When someone ignores you, the natural temptation is to lean in harder, to send that one more text, to post that story they might notice, to somehow trigger a response. But what you're really doing in those moments is negotiating for breadcrumbs of validation. You're hoping that just enough attention will come back your way to quiet the uncertainty inside you. But even when it does, even when they finally message back, it doesn't feel fulfilling. It just delays the anxiety until it happens again. And that's the cycle, this emotional limbo where you're always trying to read between the lines, trying to decode silence as if it's a secret language. But silence isn't mysterious, it's revealing. It's telling you, I'm not showing up for you. And every time you accept that silence, every time you explain it away or justify it, you're sending a signal to yourself. I can tolerate emotional inconsistency. I can work with being unsure all the time, but you don't have to. Let's talk about standards for a second. When you make someone ignoring you mean you're not good enough, you lower your own standard for what love and connection should feel like. You start accepting emotional ambiguity as normal. You convince yourself that strong feelings mean more than strong behavior. But feelings don't build relationships, actions do. Effort does. When someone is genuinely interested in you, they'll want to make you feel secure in that. They won't leave you wondering where you stand. They won't disappear when things get a little real or when you're not constantly entertaining or pleasing. Real interest doesn't punish you for having needs. It doesn't retreat into silence when you ask for more clarity or consistency. In fact, real interest appreciates that you're being honest, that you're communicating, that you're not playing games. So if you're doing all the emotional work, constantly trying to figure out where you stand, it's a sign that the dynamic is already imbalanced. Love, real love, is a two-person job. And so is dating, by the way. In the early stages of any relationship, you're not meant to be convincing someone of your worth. You're meant to be observing. You're meant to be watching how they show up. Are they consistent? Are they communicative? Do they make you feel seen? Do they follow through? That's your job. Not to perform, but to observe. Now, I get it. Sometimes we ignore all of that because we want it to work. We feel chemistry, or we're afraid of being alone, or we think this person is the best we're going to get. But just because you feel a connection doesn't mean the relationship is right. And just because you want someone doesn't mean they're ready to give you what you deserve. I need you to remember this. Your need for clarity is not a weakness. Your desire for consistency is not too much. Wanting someone to communicate with you in a way that feels secure isn't needy, it's healthy. But you have to decide that those things matter more than temporary attention. You have to decide that your peace is more valuable than keeping someone around who keeps you in constant confusion. You see, when you make excuses for someone's silence, when you justify their lack of communication or tell yourself they're just bad at texting, what you're really doing is trying to keep a version of them alive in your mind, a version that isn't showing up in real life. And that version feels safe because it gives you hope, but it also keeps you stuck because it means you're investing in potential instead of reality. And here's the truth. Love doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful. It doesn't have to be unpredictable to be exciting. The most meaningful relationships are the ones where you feel calm, where you feel respected, where you feel chosen. And that doesn't happen when someone's ignoring you and making you question your worth. That happens when someone sees your value and wants to be part of your life in a consistent, intentional way. So if you're in a place where you're constantly trying to decode someone's silence, I want to offer you this. Maybe it's not your job to decode them. Maybe it's your job to decide. Decide what kind of love you're willing to accept. Decide that you're not going to sit around waiting for breadcrumbs of attention. Decide that you're not going to waste your energy analyzing someone who isn't even giving you the basics: respect, communication, presence. Because here's the thing, the right person won't make you do emotional gymnastics just to feel seen. You won't be stuck wondering if you matter. You won't have to earn their effort. It will come naturally because they want to be there. And if someone's silence is louder than their effort, that's your answer. Don't chase clarity in places where you're only given confusion. You deserve better than that. When someone starts to ignore you, it's easy to fall into the trap of overanalyzing every little thing. Did I say something wrong? Were they just busy? Maybe they didn't see my message. The mind will invent 1,000 scenarios to protect itself from the simplest, most painful possibility that they're just not that interested. But here's the truth. Interest shows up and disinterest fades away. Think about how you behave when you're interested in someone. You find time, you send the message, you follow up. You want to engage, to connect, to create momentum. It doesn't matter how busy your life is. If the desire is there, the effort will follow. You shouldn't have to teach someone how to value you. You shouldn't have to beg for attention or pull connection out of them like it's a favor. What's really damaging isn't just the silence, it's the uncertainty that follows. You keep wondering if you should wait longer or if reaching out again will change things. You start thinking that maybe, just maybe, they'll come around. But here's the shift you need to make. Stop treating someone's lack of clarity as a challenge. It's not your job to solve that puzzle. It's your job to listen to what the silence is telling you. Disinterest has a very specific energy to it. It doesn't chase. It doesn't prioritize. It doesn't commit. And you'll feel it, even if they occasionally throw in a breadcrumb of attention just to keep you holding on. But you don't want breadcrumbs. You want the real thing. And you deserve it. We live in a world where it's easier than ever to reach out. A message, a call, a reaction to a story. Connection is at our fingertips. So when someone doesn't use any of those to connect with you, it's not because they couldn't, it's because they chose not to. And that choice is a reflection of how much or how little they're investing in this dynamic. If they wanted to talk to you, they would. If they wanted to see you, they'd make the plan. It's that simple. Complicated behavior usually just means someone is trying to keep their options open without committing to anything real. And I get it. It hurts to admit that someone you were excited about might not feel the same. But what hurts more is staying in the waiting room of someone else's life, hoping they'll call your name. You don't belong in someone's maybe, you belong in someone's absolutely. And the only way to find that is by walking away from anyone who treats you like a question mark. We all crave validation, we want to be chosen, but you have to be mindful of what you're being chosen for. If someone only comes around when it's convenient for them, if they disappear without explanation, if their effort is inconsistent, that's not connection, that's convenience. And you are not someone's convenience. You're not an option to be weighed or a backup plan they revisit when they're bored. You are a whole person deserving of real energy, presence, and respect. So the next time someone ignores you, try this. Don't chase, don't double text, don't spiral, just observe. Let their actions reveal their intentions and then choose yourself. Because the person who wants to be in your life will never put you in a position to question where you stand. They'll make the effort, they'll show up, they'll follow through, and it won't feel like work to understand where you fit in their world. It'll feel like peace, like certainty, like alignment. Letting go of someone who ignores you isn't about bitterness, it's about boundaries. It's about saying, I won't beg for the bare minimum. It's about protecting your time, your heart, and your energy for someone who's truly ready to communicate, ready to build, ready to meet you in the middle. You don't need to fix what isn't broken in you just because someone else couldn't see your value. You're not unlovable just because someone didn't choose to love you. Their behavior doesn't define your worth, it reveals theirs. And when someone is interested, truly interested, you'll know. You won't have to guess, you won't have to chase, you won't have to shrink yourself or play games or wait days for a reply. You'll feel seen, you'll feel heard, you'll feel like you matter. So don't waste another second chasing a ghost. Let the silence be the closure. Let the fade out be the sign, and walk confidently toward the kind of love that shows up for you with no hesitation, because interest shows up, disinterest fades away. And you should never settle for anything less than someone who's excited to show up for you. It hurts, doesn't it? That feeling when someone you cared about, someone you were excited about, starts pulling away, goes silent, ignores your messages. You try to rationalize it. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe something happened. Maybe they'll reach out tomorrow. And you sit there holding your breath, hoping the next buzz on your phone is them explaining everything away. But deep down, a part of you already knows they're not coming back in the way you want. And in that moment, you feel rejected. Not just ignored, but truly rejected, like something about you wasn't enough to hold their attention. But here's the truth I want you to hear. Rejection isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's a redirection. When someone chooses to ignore you, yes, it stings, it bruises the ego, chips at your confidence, and can even make you question the kind of connection you thought you had. But what if I told you that their silence, their disinterest, their ghosting, it's not the ending of your worth, it's the beginning of your clarity. You see, we often assign so much meaning to someone choosing not to show up for us. We treat it like it says something deeply personal about who we are. If I were more attractive, more interesting, more lovable, they'd stay. But that's not the way real connection works. When someone pulls away, it's rarely about your worth and far more often about their capacity or their unwillingness to meet you where you are. That rejection, that silence, it's removing the wrong person from your life, someone who wasn't emotionally ready, who couldn't match your energy, or who was never fully in to begin with. And when you chase after someone who's already backing away, what you're doing is abandoning yourself in hopes that they'll choose you. You're pouring energy into a space that has already been emptied of intention. And it's tempting, right? It's tempting to chase, to explain, to keep the door open just in case they change their mind. Because when someone starts off showing interest, when they give you a glimpse of connection, it's hard to believe they could just walk away. It feels unjustified, like there's something left unsaid or undone. But here's the reality. People don't ignore what they value. I want to say that again. People don't ignore what they value. So when someone starts fading, when their responses go from enthusiastic to indifferent, that's not a sign to try harder. It's a sign to lean back, to pull your energy inward, to protect the parts of yourself that deserve to be met, not managed. And I know that feels like giving up, but it's not giving up. It's letting go of what isn't holding you. And the moment you do that, the moment you stop waiting around for someone who's undecided about you, you make space for something real to enter. Something that doesn't feel like work just to be seen. Something that flows. Something that feels mutual. Think about it this way. If you were driving in the wrong direction and someone told you this isn't the way, would you feel rejected or would you feel thankful? In love, we often cling to the idea of what something could be, and in doing so, we ignore what it actually is. The redirection that comes from rejection is trying to tell you, this is not your person. Keep going. There's more ahead. But we fight it. We double down. We try to change their mind. We twist ourselves into someone they might want. And in doing that, we drift further and further from our own center. We lose ourselves in the pursuit of someone else's approval. Here's something I want you to carry with you. If it requires you to shrink, silence, or second guess yourself, it's not love. Real love doesn't make you feel invisible. It doesn't keep you waiting in anxiety. It doesn't offer half versions of commitment and expect full devotion in return. So yes, it hurts when someone ignores you. It leaves a hole where potential once lived. But that pain, it's not a punishment. It's a teacher. It's there to remind you of your standard, to bring you back to your worth, and to guide you towards something better. Because the person who's meant for you won't ignore your presence. They'll value it. They will make you wonder where you stand. They'll show you consistently, lovingly, effortlessly. And you won't have to chase them because they'll be walking right beside you. Sometimes the most loving thing the universe can do is remove someone from your life before you invest any deeper. Before your time, energy, and heart go further into a connection that can't sustain you. It may look like rejection, but it's really protection. It's the clearing before the arrival, the silence before the symphony. So don't run after people who are walking away. Let them go and turn your attention to the space that's been made. Because what's coming next is going to match the energy you've been giving all along. Let them go so you can grow. You know, one of the most painful things in any relationship, especially in the early stages, is being ignored. That feeling when someone just disappears on you, doesn't reply, goes cold without explanation. It stings. And the hardest part, you're left wondering what you did wrong, what you could have done differently, and why someone who once seemed so interested now treats you like you're invisible. But let me say something that might change how you see this. The right person won't leave you wondering. They won't leave you questioning your worth, replaying every text, or overanalyzing every moment of silence. You won't be stuck in this emotional limbo where you're constantly checking your phone, trying to read between the lines, wondering if maybe they're just busy, or if maybe you just imagined the whole connection in the first place. When someone truly values you, when they see your worth, they don't put you on the shelf until it's convenient for them. They show up, they make the effort, and not just when it's easy or exciting or fun, but even when it's inconvenient, even when they're busy, even when life gets complicated. Because when someone genuinely cares about you, silence isn't their default. Communication is. Clarity is. Respect is. See, what you need to understand is that wondering isn't romantic. It's not mysterious. It's not some thrilling emotional roller coaster. It's anxiety. It's doubt. And it's usually a sign that you're doing all the emotional heavy lifting in the relationship. And let's be honest, that's not love. That's imbalance. That's uncertainty disguised as chemistry. You deserve better than that. You deserve someone who texts you back, not just because it's polite, but because they want to. You deserve someone who doesn't keep you on edge, but helps you feel safe and secure, because real attraction isn't built on confusion. It's built on clarity. And someone who's genuinely interested will never want you guessing. Now, I know when you're emotionally invested, it's hard to walk away from someone who's sending you mixed signals. You want to believe the best in them. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt. You tell yourself they're just overwhelmed, or maybe they don't know how to express themselves. And sure, that might be true, but here's the reality. Emotional unavailability, whatever its cause, isn't your responsibility to fix. You're not here to prove your worth to someone who can't even acknowledge your presence. You're not here to play therapist, to decode someone's behavior, or to wait around hoping they'll finally see you the way you see them. Because while you're stuck wondering where you stand, they've already made a decision through their silence, their distance, their inconsistency. And that decision, it's that they're not ready to give you what you're looking for. Now, don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean you're not enough. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You're too much for the wrong person, too thoughtful, too emotionally available, too ready for the kind of connection they're not prepared to meet. And that's not a flaw. It's a strength. It means you're in tune with your heart. It means you're open. It means you're ready. But readiness deserves reciprocity. And that's why I say again, the right person won't leave you wondering. They won't give you breadcrumbs of affection, hoping it'll be enough to keep you hooked. They won't go silent and expect you to fill in the gaps with hope. No, the right person will show up with consistency, with honesty, with presence. They'll lean in, not pull away. They'll say what they mean, and they'll mean what they say. And even more than that, they'll make you feel seen, not just for what you do, but for who you are. You won't need to perform or prove or persuade. You'll just be, and that will be enough. So if someone is ignoring you right now, if you're stuck in that confusing space where nothing is clear and everything feels uncertain, I want you to hear this. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to keep wondering. You can let go. Not because they don't matter, but because you do. You can choose to stop waiting for someone who already showed you how they feel by not showing up at all. And when you do that, when you finally walk away from the person who keeps you guessing, you make space. Space for someone who answers instead of avoids, who shows up instead of shuts down, who gives instead of withholds. Someone who doesn't let you wonder because they'd never dream of making you feel like anything less than a priority. Because the right person simply won't leave you wondering.